The Young and the Restless spoilers. The funeral of Cole has become the center of intense gossip, with everyone questioning the truth behind his supposed death. Is he really dead, or is there something more sinister at play? This is the question that continues to haunt everyone close to him, especially his wife, Victoria. Cole's condition had been a subject of much speculation before his alleged death. People had wondered whether he was truly suffering from cancer or if it was just an elaborate lie. There were moments when his symptoms didn't align with the typical progression of a terminal illness. People were perplexed, especially when it seemed like Cole wasn't showing the signs of someone who was gravely ill. For instance, those suffering from lung cancer often struggle to breathe, but Cole seemed to be in less distress than what was expected. Victoria, on the other hand, was in turmoil. As a devoted wife, she was desperately trying to find any possible way to save her husband. She cried herself to sleep, constantly researching treatments and visiting doctors, hoping for a miracle. Despite all of her efforts, she felt the weight of the inevitable closing in on her. Still, she tried to maintain a facade of strength for her family. She couldn't fathom losing Cole, yet a part of her began to accept the cold truth that death might indeed be knocking on their door. But the truth, as always, has a way of coming to the surface. Billy, who had his own reasons for doubting Cole's story, began to suspect that something wasn't right. His intuition told him that the man everyone believed was on his deathbed might be playing a much darker game. Billy didn't buy into the whole cancer story, it just didn't add up. So, he decided to investigate. He watched Cole from the shadows, determined to uncover the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. What Billy discovered was a shocker. Cole, in a desperate attempt to maintain the illusion of illness, had stolen someone else's cancer test results and passed them off as his own. It was a calculated move, designed to deceive everyone into believing he was sick and potentially even to garner sympathy. Was it a mistake on the part of the doctors? Or was this part of a more sinister plan to manipulate those around him? As Billy unraveled this deception, he confronted Cole with the damning evidence. He exposed Cole for what he truly was, a fraud with no actual illness. The anger and betrayal Billy felt were palpable as he confronted Cole, demanding answers. But Cole, ever the manipulator, tried to twist the situation, turning the tables to make it seem as though Billy was the one causing trouble. Victoria's emotions were in turmoil when she learned the truth. She felt a mix of emotions, relief that Cole wasn't actually dying, but also a profound sense of betrayal. She had spent so many sleepless nights beside him, mourning the man she thought was slipping away, and now she found out that it was all a lie. The realization shattered her. The man she thought she knew, the man she'd promised to support through thick and thin, had been deceiving her all along. But even as she struggled with the truth, Victoria couldn't help but feel a sliver of joy, the joy that her husband wasn't going to die after all. Her mind spun with conflicting thoughts and emotions. She was relieved that Cole was going to live, but also angry at the deception he had woven around her and their entire family. The days that followed were filled with tension and confrontation. Billy's accusations spread like wildfire through the family. People were divided. Some believed Billy's version of events, while others questioned whether he had ulterior motives in exposing Cole. Regardless, the fact remained that Cole's health had been a facade, and now he had to face the consequences of his actions. Victoria, torn between her love for her husband and the betrayal she felt, couldn't reconcile her emotions. How could she look at Cole the same way after everything he had done? Her heart wavered between the desire to forgive him and the need to stand up for herself. She was no longer the woman who would stand by a man at all costs. The truth had changed her perspective forever. Meanwhile, Cole was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. His lies had been exposed, and his manipulation had been unraveled. The man who once seemed so invincible was now vulnerable, and the respect he had once commanded from those around him had evaporated. The scandalous truth had been revealed, and Cole's future seemed uncertain. Victoria had to make a decision. Could she move past this betrayal, or was it time for her to cut Cole loose and walk away? Her heart told her one thing, but her mind told her another. The choice would be hers, but it would never be easy. As the dust settled and the consequences of Cole's lies reverberated through the family, the question remained, what would happen next? This scandal had shaken them all to their core. The once perfect image of Cole had been shattered, leaving everyone questioning their loyalties and the trust they placed in him. No one would ever look at Cole the same way again. And as for Victoria, the road to healing would be long and fraught with emotional turmoil. But in the end, one thing was clear: the truth always comes out, and no one can escape the consequences of their actions forever. The haunting journey of Cole Howard on The Young and the Restless has led us down a path that feels as if it's building toward an inevitable, tragic conclusion. As the days pass, it seems that everything in Cole's life is slowly unraveling. His health, once a subtle concern, has now escalated to something that can no longer be ignored. His persistent cough, coupled with his declining energy levels, is more than a mere inconvenience, it's the ominous sign of something far more serious. Those around him, particularly his wife Victoria Newman and Claire Newman, have been walking a thin line between hope and despair, as they each wrestle with their own thoughts about Cole's future. Victoria, the strong, ever-caring partner, has been holding on to the belief that perhaps there is a way to save Cole, that maybe, just maybe, this illness will not consume him. She's spent countless sleepless nights at his side, hoping for a miracle that has yet to come. Her pain is palpable, as is her fear of what might be the inevitable outcome of his illness. But deep down, she knows that this could be the end of a chapter she wasn't prepared to close. She still clings to a shred of hope, despite all the signs pointing to the fact that Cole's days are numbered. For her, the idea of a life without him is almost unfathomable. She has been through so much with him, their love built on a foundation of shared victories, sacrifices, and unspoken understandings. Now, she must confront the reality that this very love could soon be taken away from her. The tests that Cole awaits become a looming symbol of dread in the house. Victoria clings to the belief that they could be mistaken, that perhaps the results will come back with some semblance of hope. But the more she watches him deteriorate, the more the truth begins to seep in. The tests will reveal the truth that no one can escape. Cole has cancer. It's lung cancer, a diagnosis that is as cruel as it is unforgiving. And with this diagnosis, the sense of urgency grows. Time is slipping away, and the life they once knew together feels as if it's slipping through their fingers. But as Victoria braces herself for the inevitable, the fabric of Cole's narrative takes a shocking twist. There's one person who refuses to accept this diagnosis, one person who cannot simply stand by and watch Cole suffer. Billy Abbott, a man who has often had a complicated history with Cole, is suddenly thrust into a world where skepticism and doubt reign supreme. Billy's gut feeling tells him that something doesn't add up. While the doctors have confirmed the diagnosis, Billy's instincts scream that Cole isn't being completely truthful about his condition. As someone who has always been a keen observer of human behavior, Billy begins to notice the subtle inconsistencies in Cole's actions. His refusal to speak in detail about his symptoms, his avoidance of certain tests, and his strange behavior around others. Something doesn't seem right. Billy is determined to uncover the truth. He sets out on his own investigation, quietly observing Cole, asking pointed questions, and gathering as much information as possible. He follows Cole's movements, trying to piece together what's really going on. Eventually, Billy uncovers a bombshell revelation that will rock the entire family to its core. Cole, it turns out, hasn't been entirely truthful about his diagnosis. The tests that he claimed were his? They weren't his at all. Instead, Cole had somehow managed to steal someone else's test results from a patient who actually had cancer, and passed them off as his own. This wasn't just a simple mistake. It was a deliberate act of deception, an attempt to fool everyone around him into believing he was ill. As the truth comes crashing down, Billy finds himself face to face with Cole. The confrontation is intense, with Billy exposing the lies that Cole has been spinning for months. The anger and disbelief in Billy's eyes are undeniable as he accuses Cole of manipulating not only his wife but also the entire family. "You've been lying to all of us," Billy shouts, his voice full of fury. "You never had cancer. This was all a game to you. To get attention, to make us feel sorry for you." Cole, cornered and desperate, tries to defend himself, but it's clear that his excuses are flimsy and unconvincing. The man who had once commanded respect and sympathy is now reduced to a shell of himself. And Victoria, the woman who had stood by him through thick and thin, is shattered. Her heart breaks as the truth sinks in. The man she has given everything to, the man she has sacrificed for, has betrayed her in the worst way possible. Victoria stands there, frozen in shock, unable to comprehend what she is hearing. Her mind races, torn between disbelief and anger. She thought she had known everything about Cole, his hopes, his fears, his ambitions, but now she realizes that she had been living in a lie. The pain is almost too much for her to bear. How could he do this to her? How could he deceive her like this after everything they had been through? As the reality of Cole's deception settles in, the fallout begins. Victoria's emotions are a whirlwind. On one hand, there's relief that Cole isn't dying after all. But on the other hand, there's overwhelming sorrow and betrayal. She feels lost, unsure of what to do next. Her entire world has been built around the idea of supporting Cole through his illness, but now that foundation has crumbled beneath her feet. How does one rebuild after such a monumental betrayal? And then there's Claire. The woman who had been involved with Cole, who had hoped for a future with him, is now faced with the harsh truth. Her own heartbreak is no less intense. Claire had invested so much of herself into Cole, believing him to be the man she would spend the rest of her life with. But now, like Victoria, she too is left in a state of confusion and anger. How could Cole have done this to her? How could he have led her on, made her believe in a future that now feels impossible? The fallout of Cole's actions is far-reaching. The trust that once existed between the characters is shattered, and the emotional damage that has been done will take a long time to heal. For Victoria and Claire, the road ahead is uncertain. They must both grapple with the betrayal they've experienced, each in their own way. But one thing is clear, their lives will never be the same again. The man they thought they knew is gone, replaced by a liar who has left nothing but destruction in his wake. As for Cole, the consequences of his actions are only beginning to unfold. His deception has alienated everyone around him, and the world he once knew is now slipping away. There's no turning back from this betrayal. His reputation is in tatters, and the respect he once commanded has vanished. His future is uncertain, and the people he has hurt the most, the women who loved him, are now left to pick up the pieces of their broken hearts. Victoria, Claire, and even Tessa will be left to contend with the aftermath of Cole's actions. Their lives will be irrevocably changed, and the relationships that once seemed unbreakable will be tested like never before. The path to forgiveness will be long and fraught with obstacles, but whether or not they can ever truly forgive Cole remains to be seen. The scandalous revelation of his lies has thrown their world into disarray, and the road to healing will be anything but easy. As the truth comes out, viewers will be left to ask, what happens next for these characters? How will they rebuild their lives after the devastation caused by Cole's actions? The emotional journey that lies ahead promises to be filled with heartbreak, growth, and perhaps even redemption. But for now, the most important question remains. Can these relationships ever recover from the lies that have been told? In the world of the young and the restless, nothing is ever as it seems, and the truth, no matter how painful, always comes to light in the end.